Hey guys, welcome back to Contest Prep University. I'm Joe Klemczewski with Adam Atkinson. We're going to continue in our series looking at case studies. And Adam, I recently had a client who is a male bodybuilder and has a pretty good metabolism. So we had, an entire year together. We've been practicing, going through, how we're going to approach peak week. And by practicing, I mean, we were in the place we needed to be as far as condition, and just verbally making sure that he was aware of what was going to happen. And as we go through a metabolic building phase where calories are coming up on a macro level, macrocosm, that almost mimics in a peak week what you're going to do with a progressive linear load. So we've already been increasing food for a couple weeks. So we got into peak week, and all of a sudden, we're adding some food, and we're adding some food, and we're adding some carbs, and he just isn't seeing a lot of increased fullness. His weight is not going up. And occasionally this happens with a successful metabolic building period where somebody is as lean as they need to be weeks early, and you can start increasing their food intake. Then you get into peak week, and their metabolism is almost like a runaway freight train, and you keep dumping food in, and you're afraid, okay, I'm gonna reach a point where I may start spilling this person over, even though they seem to be assimilating that food well. So I got to a point, Adam, where around Thursday I said, okay, we've got carbs so high, and we've had to increase carbs almost every day. So let's bring up protein by an extra meal's worth of protein. Let's add 10 or 15 grams of fat. And so for the last 2 days of the week, we increased protein and fat to a level where we could keep carbs about the same, because I knew our carb level was maxed out. Like we should not be giving him any more carbohydrate. And sure enough, he woke up on contest day and was just perfect. All of a sudden he finally had gained a pound or two of fullness, and really had just big full muscle bellies like we had wanted. But it really got me nervous that we were really having to chase his metabolism upward. So from your perspective, what would you do to maybe avoid that, or to even make that a better experience?
Yeah, sometimes you can bring those fats up earlier to, I call it like pumping the brakes on a client. And what happens when you give someone more carbs and more starch, they start burning through them, their temperature rises. So exactly what you would do, I would primarily go fat-based, but it sounds like carbs were getting so high that protein probably needed to come up to even hit that level in the first place. So definitely bringing those fats in, so then they're not just having such a thermic effect into their peak week and burning through those carbs, so to speak. That can really help, especially if you just see a client and they're just losing weight every day, and you can almost see them getting flatter even though you're giving them more food. And then my other thought would be, a lot of my guys will accidentally do this, is I give them sodium ranges, but they just still think they need to cut sodium all week. So I would just spot check on sodium and say, are you sure you're hitting the sodium values I gave you? And maybe even increase those just a little bit more as well.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I know you've kind of coined that phrase, being sodium flat, where they're eating enough food and they're really hydrating, but they still just can't maintain muscle fullness. You don't see that vascularity. You don't see, and I'm not even talking about contest day, just in general, they're looking like they're getting flatter. And absolutely, that's one thing that I even did for the first case study I went over in the last episode, was once we got to contest day, really needing to increase that. And you're right, for this particular gentleman, I mean, we ended up at, over 500 grams of carbs a day at the end of peak week. And so taking protein from the 200, 225 range up to 250, 275, for that short of a period of time, it was just so he didn't have to digest and worry about that much carbohydrate. And then, fat, we had way above 80, 90 grams. I think the final day, Friday, we were at about 100 grams of fat. So, that's just how many calories this guy was consuming at the end. And again, like I said, that's a successful metabolic building phase in a very successful progressive linear load. But even when you're in that situation, it can be a temptation to pull back and be too conservative. Yet at the same time, you're always thinking, well, if I go one step too far, then it's over. So no matter what you do as a coach, no matter what kind of a method you're using, there is always so much to read and interpret and adjust potentially during peak week.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, stay tuned. We're going to keep rolling through this series where Adam and I discuss specific cases we've worked through and hope it helps you with your contest prep. We'll see you next time.